A 13-year-old girl with shining blonde hair walks out of a convenience store after her last phone call with her mother. Just 2 hours later, her body is found under a bridge, brutally raped and strangled. But due to an unbelievable administrative error, she was recorded as Jane Doe, an unidentified woman, in police files for 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks caused leads to vanish, witnesses to forget, and the killer to hide in the darkness for 16 long years. Will justice come for Krystal Jean Baker, the great niece of the legendary Marilyn Monroe, when DNA technology finally speaks? Welcome to the Case Files, where we unveil shocking cases and uncover the truth hidden behind the darkness of crime. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most haunting cases in Texas history, a case that remained unsolved for 16 years until breakthrough DNA technology finally brought justice. In this episode, we're taking a deep dive into the case, the Texas killing fields, the murder of Krystal Jean Baker, the story of a 13-year-old girl brutally murdered, and the arduous journey of investigators tracking down a killer who hid for nearly 2 decades. From the killing fields of Texas, where over 40 young women were murdered over 30 years, to breakthrough modern forensic science, this case is living proof of the saying, justice may come late, but it will never be absent. Background and characters. Texas City, the city named after the state. If there's anywhere in Texas that embodies the independent spirit of this state, it's Texas City, the only city honored to bear the state's name. Located along Galveston Bay, this city is where residents take pride in their cowboy identity. They wear jeans and leather boots, even when attending parties, bring their own liquor to restaurants, and you'll never see taxis or neckties on the streets. It was the perfect place for Ginny Escamilla, a single mother, to raise her young daughter. She wanted her child to grow up in a peaceful, safe environment where everyone knew each other. But she didn't know that just beneath that peaceful surface, a monster was lurking. Krystal Jean Baker, her mother's shining star. Krystal Jean Baker, 13 years old, was a girl with a radiant smile, amber-colored eyes, and blonde hair shining like Texas sunshine. Her mother called her a shining star, not just for her angelic beauty, but also for her kind heart and cheerful personality. That beauty was a legacy from the family's most famous relative, Norma Jean Baker, who became a film legend under the stage name Marilyn Monroe, Krystal's paternal great-aunt. Krystal dreamed of becoming a cheerleader for her high school team, and if things went well, maybe performing for the Dallas Cowboys, her favorite team. But like many 13-year-olds, Krystal was at the age of asserting herself, sometimes rebellious, and wanting more freedom. She didn't know that carelessness on one day would take away all those dreams. The fateful day. March 5th, 1996. The argument with grandmother. Tuesday, March 5th, 1996. Krystal should have gone to school like any other day. But that morning, she complained of an earache and asked her mother to let her stay home. Ginny agreed, but required her to go to her grandmother's house, who lived nearby, and stay there all day until her mother picked her up after work. All day, Krystal rested on her grandmother's sofa. But when school let out, a friend called inviting her over. Krystal told her grandmother that she felt better and wanted to go out to see her friend. Her grandmother was worried because she was still sick. The two argued a bit, but eventually Krystal left anyway. Around afternoon, Krystal arrived at a convenience store near Interstate 45, I-45, the highway later infamously dubbed the Texas Killing Fields. She called her mother from a payphone there. Ginny ordered her to return to her grandmother's house immediately. Krystal then called her friend to ask if she could pick her up. That was the last time anyone heard Krystal Jean Baker's voice. 2 hours of terror. When Krystal left the convenience store, she stepped into the final nightmare of her life. Her last known location was near Interstate 45 in Texas City. Just 2 hours later, around 8 p.m., Deputy Wesley King of Chambers County was on patrol when he received an emergency call. A local fisherman named Jerry Rabin and his wife reported discovering a body under a bridge crossing the Trinity River. Initially, Wesley thought it might just be a doll or something, but the caller insisted they had found the body of a young girl. Horrific crime scene. When Wesley King arrived at the scene, he saw a pickup truck parked at the base of the bridge. The fishing couple was trembling inside the vehicle. Nearby, on the roadside with gravel strips, there was an object covered with a blanket. Jerry Rabin explained tremblingly that they just wanted to show respect, so they covered the body with a blanket. Wesley gently lifted the blanket and was shocked by the horrifying scene. A very young girl, wearing a blue floral dress, exactly matching the description of what Krystal Baker was wearing when she went missing. The hem of the dress was pulled up, exposing blood-stained underwear. Krystal had been raped, savagely beaten, and strangled to death. Her body was dumped under the I-10 bridge crossing the Trinity River like a bag of trash. Although very shocked, Wesley tried to stay calm and began carefully examining the scene. He quickly called Sergeant Bradley Moon, an experienced investigator with the Chambers County Sheriff's Office. Boom, the initial investigation. Fatal mistake. Sergeant Bradley Moon, often compared to Wild West lawmen with his stern, upright character, immediately arrived at the scene. He quickly determined that Krystal had been killed elsewhere and then dumped by the river because there were no signs of struggle around. But then, a devastating mistake occurred. Because Krystal went missing in Texas City, part of Galveston County, but her body was found in Chambers County, 2 hours' drive away toward the Louisiana border. She was recorded as Jane Doe, unidentified woman, in police files for 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks were an extremely important period. Witnesses forgot what they saw. Evidence couldn't be tracked in time. Leads were lost, and the killer had enough time to cover his tracks. Autopsy. The autopsy results confirmed that Krystal had been raped before being killed. Clearly, she had fought back fiercely, scratching the perpetrator, hoping to leave DNA traces. Police collected cell samples from under Krystal's fingernails. However, with the limited DNA analysis technology of 1996, they couldn't extract a clear DNA sample from these specimens. The time frame from when she left the convenience store until the body was discovered was only about 4 hours, from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. That was the time period Krystal was abducted, raped, and murdered. Hunting the first suspect. Detectives began investigating people around Krystal. Her mother mentioned Brandon Lewis, a young man who used to live near them, 8 years older than Krystal, and who had been close with her. After checking his background, police discovered Brandon was actually 21, while Krystal was only 13. Suspiciously, Brandon disappeared right after Krystal went missing and didn't even attend her funeral. Eventually, police found and brought him in for questioning. However, he denied any involvement and provided an alibi that friends confirmed. Brandon even passed a polygraph test. The mysterious silver truck. A witness said they saw a suspicious truck near where Krystal's body was found. The truck bed was full of beer cans, and the man driving looked very disheveled. This person even remembered the license plate and provided it to police. Through checking, the vehicle belonged to Map Robert, an unemployed 43-year-old driver with no criminal record. But when detectives arrived at Map's house, they discovered he was drunk to the point of not being able to stand. There was no evidence proving Map was connected to Krystal's death. The case gradually reached a dead end. Texas killing fields, the lingering nightmare. The Laura Smither case. In March 1997, exactly 1 year after Krystal was murdered, police received shocking news. The body of Laura Smither, 12 years old, was found in an area only about 30 minutes' drive from where Krystal was discovered. Laura went missing on April 3, 1997, while jogging near her home in Friendswood, Texas. 17 days later, her body was found in a retention pond in Pasadena, Texas. Immediately, Sergeant Moon sensed these were no longer two isolated cases. Could Krystal be the victim of a serial killer? The killing fields. He began comparing the files of both cases and discovered something that sent chills down his spine. In Southeast Texas, over the past 30 years, at least over 40 young women had been murdered, most without the killer being found. Sergeant Moon began suspecting the cases were related to an area dubbed the Texas Killing Fields, a stretch of land extending nearly 80 kilometers between Houston and Galveston, along Interstate 145, a place where bodies of murdered girls were continuously discovered in the most brutal ways. Since the early 1970s, this area had become a cemetery for dozens of young women. Krystal and Laura were both strangled and dumped near water. They had similar appearances: young, blonde hair, white skin. Both disappeared not far from home. Moon compared every detail: age, cause of death, location, victim appearance. There seemed to be an invisible hand connecting everything, but missing one thing: evidence identifying the killer. The breakthrough after 14 years. DNA technology speaks. Nearly 14 years passed. In 2010, the case was reopened. Major advances in DNA testing technology brought new hope. Sergeant Moon contacted specialist Sherry Wilcox, who was still in high school when Krystal was murdered. Since then, Krystal's case had haunted her throughout her life. A Chambers County police officer took Krystal's dress from the dusty evidence envelope and sent it back for analysis with new technology. After re-examining the old evidence, she found semen stains on the dress and DNA samples under the victim's fingernails. The miracle from Codis. Officers waited for results like children waiting for Christmas presents, and the miracle came. A complete DNA profile was extracted belonging to the person who attacked Krystal. Undeterred, investigators entered the DNA sample into the National CODIS, Combined DNA Index System, database. This is the system that stores DNA of all convicted criminals across the United States. And then the system returned a name: Kevin Edison Smith. Kevin Edison Smith, the Texas Devil. Criminal record. Kevin Edison Smith, a former prisoner on conditional parole. His record was like a black book of crime. Hated police, had attacked an officer, previously arrested for drug trafficking. DNA sample was stored in the system from a minor drug case in Louisiana in 2010. Kevin Edison Smith was a black man, 45 years old, living in Texas City, with multiple wives, multiple children. Previously, he had never been a suspect in any murder case. But now, DNA evidence had placed him at the center of the case. The arrest. Kevin was working as a welder at the Port Arthur refinery, a 2-hour drive from Texas City. In September 2010, police raided. When called into the security office, Kevin was informed he was being arrested for kidnapping and murdering Krystal Jean Baker. Kevin was shocked and continuously claimed innocence. But evidence doesn't lie. His DNA was present on the victim's body. Undeniable. Trial and justice. Confession of crime. Finally, at trial on April 26, 2012, 16 years after Krystal was killed, Kevin Edison Smith confessed to the crime. According to his statement, that day, Kevin saw Krystal walking on the road near I-45. He stopped and offered her a ride. When Krystal refused, he attacked, abducted, raped, then killed her. During the murder, Kevin's DNA remained on the victim's body. It exposed the monster hiding behind a mask of innocence for 16 years. The verdict. The jury took only about 30 minutes to find Smith guilty of capital murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with possibility of parole after 40 years, meaning he must serve until 2052. When the sentence was announced, Ginny Escamilla, the mother who had waited 16 years, sobbed, not from hatred, but from relief. Her daughter had finally received justice. Krystal's legacy. The Krystal Jean Baker Act. The Krystal Jean Baker case not only brought justice for one victim, but also changed Texas law. On June 14, 2019, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed into law the Krystal Jean Baker Act, House Bill 1399, effective September 1, 2019. This law allows DNA collection from individuals charged with 24 specific serious felonies, even before conviction. Previously, police could only collect DNA after someone was convicted. Under the new law, when someone is arrested for a qualifying serious felony, such as murder, rape, kidnapping, a DNA sample from the cheek swab, will be collected and entered into the CODIS system immediately. Remarkable results. In just the first year of implementation, 2019, 20, and 20, the Krystal Jean Baker Act helped solve over 250 unsolved criminal cases, identify perpetrators in over 45 ongoing suspect investigations, collect thousands of new DNA samples for the database. Sergeant Bradley Moon said, "If this law had existed in 1996, we might have caught Kevin Smith much sooner. Perhaps Laura Smither and other victims wouldn't have had to die." Texas killing fields, continuing to solve cases. The Krystal Jean Baker Act also helped solve some other cases in the Texas Killing Fields series. William Lewis Reese, a truck driver and serial killer, confessed to killing Laura Smither in 2016. In June 2022, Reese was convicted of killing 3 Texas victims: Laura Smither, 12 years old, Kelly Cox, 20 years old, and Jessica Kane, 17 years old. All went missing in 1997. However, dozens of other cases in the Texas killing fields remain unsolved. Kevin Smith wasn't connected to these cases. Conclusion. Lessons from the case. The murder case of Krystal Jean Baker is clear proof that justice may come late, but will never be absent. From a 13-year-old girl with dreams of becoming a cheerleader, Krystal had her life stolen by a ruthless killer without conscience. But thanks to the persistence of investigators like Sergeant Bradley Moon, Specialist Sherry Wilcox, along with major advances in DNA technology, justice was finally served. Immortal legacy. Krystal Jean Baker wasn't just a victim. She became a symbol of change. The law bearing her name has helped solve over 250 unsolved cases, bringing justice to hundreds of other families waiting. Krystal's story reminds us that every victim deserves justice, no matter how many years it takes. And advances in science can change the lives of countless people. If you've watched this far, please subscribe to the Case Files channel, hit the like button, and leave a comment with your thoughts about this case. Share this video so more people know Krystal's story, so she won't be forgotten, and so justice is always remembered. Every share is a time we remember the victims and encourage investigators who are constantly fighting for justice. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode of the Case Files.